Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I want to welcome you to our subcommittee meeting from the Claremont Community Planning Group dealing with the Marina Boulevard Area Specific Plan. Has anyone not been to one of our meetings before and doesn't know what this meeting is about? I think I know.
I haven't been before either, but I know what it's about.
All right. Well, then we'll just move forward. I want to thank St. David's Episcopal Church for the use of this wonderful facility once again. There are restrooms through that door. There's also an outside exit. I think that's the only housekeeping issues that we need to address. So I'm going to take a quick roll. Harry Becker.
Here.
Cecilia Frank. Here. James Lamattery.
Here.
Dave Potter.
Here.
Margaret Schmidt is present. Joel Smith. Linda Dialli is missing. John Shannon. Carol Schleisen. Naveen Wayne. So our committee is made up of 10 individuals, 6 of which are community planning group members, and there are 4 community members that were appointed as well to be a part of the subcommittee. We're going to begin the meeting tonight with an opportunity for non-agenda public comments. Anyone is able to speak for up to 2 minutes on something that is not to do with mobility. We are addressing mobility tonight for the Marina District between Claremont Drive and Tuckalooty Road. So anything to do with vehicular mobility, pedestrian, bicycle, transit, if you can save any of your comments until we're actually addressing those issues. So anyone who wants to make a public comment other than that, maybe come up to the front here.
I'll be real quick. I'm Daniel Schmielski. I'm running for Unified School Board. See you on the campaign trail in March and April. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. I'm Ed McCoy from Fairfield Residential, and I was at the last meeting as well talking about the coastal trailer villas. And I wanted to sit in for the effort to keep everybody up to speed and being as transparent as possible. We did submit a letter to this board as well as the planning group as well as to Mr. Prince requesting that site be identified in the specific plan for 29 units per acre. And we think that's important because we'd like it to be analyzed and evaluated in the environmental impact reports so we truly know what the impacts are of that designation. So again, just make sure everybody knows what's going on, and I'll be available after if anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right. Then to review the existing conditions, I want to introduce Michael Prince and Brooke Peterson from PlaceWorks, who will help us move forward through the existing conditions.
Good evening, thank you. As Margie indicated, we're here to talk about mobility tonight, and I'm glad to be here. I know that we've had a lot of conversations. This is our 5th meeting. And there's been a lot of comments, a lot of concern, a lot of issues, just a lot of interest on mobility, so I'm glad to be talking about it tonight. I'm going to just go through a couple things before we focus on mobility. So just kind of to remind people where we're at, we've had a few meetings gathering input, and then we've talked about land use for a couple meetings, land use, urban design, and considered some of the development opportunities on a couple sites in the Claremont Planning Group area. And then tonight we're going to talk about mobility. And then from tonight we're going to talk next time about urban design. And then whether that's one meeting or a couple more meetings, we'll talk about urban design and a draft land use plan and others after the first of the year. So tonight, I'm just going to remind us where we're at in the project schedule, give people an overview of where we're at in the project now, and then just kind of an overview of the project overall, so you know where we're at. And then as Margie mentioned, we're going to talk about existing conditions, talk about some of just basically what's out there, what's on the ground now, what are some of the issues that we've identified. Our consultant is going to talk through some of the concepts that were proposed under the first phase, and then we're going to just look at some other ideas, other concepts for addressing bicycle mobility and transit and vehicular improvements. And then we'll finish with public comment. So overall project schedule, we kicked off in March. We spent a lot of time just basically kind of establishing the context. And then we've been really looking at preparing the plan framework now. We've really spent a lot of time looking at opportunities and constraints, and that's essentially where we're at right now. So we're really talking with you, gathering your input before we move ahead to then prepare a potential land use plan and the other components of the specific plan. In the spring and summer, we'll move into actually preparing the specific plan. And once we've had a draft land use plan, that will also be the initialization of the environmental impact report. So all of that is still a few months away. We're still spending time talking with you, gathering input, and we plan to do that through January, February, or even beyond. The public review, draft specific plan and EIR, when that's available, that will be a big opportunity for you to provide input. Again, we'll still have input between now and as we go through the preparation of the specific plan, but I just wanted to highlight that the public review is a big opportunity for your input on that. And then we anticipate going through hearings with the planning group and the planning commission and the city council sometime around the spring and summer 2017. So tonight, why are we talking about mobility? Mobility, I think probably a lot of us have considered the opportunities that improvements have, but it really is an opportunity to integrate any land use changes that are proposed as part of the land use plan with the improvements to bike and pedestrian and transit and vehicular circulation through the community. And it's really an opportunity to combine those. And then this business plan will look at all those aspects that I just mentioned: bike facilities, pedestrian facilities, transit, and then also streetscape. So what do the streets look like as you walk, bike, or travel on them? So just to kind of set the stage for us looking at both the existing conditions for mobility as well as any ideas that we talk about tonight, I want to remind everyone of the conversations we've had and some of essentially the vision that we've set and the guiding principles that the community approved at the last meeting related to mobility. So within that vision statement, there is a component about mobility, and the vision related to that is safe and accessible travel for all modes of travel. And the guiding principles that were established are to protect and enhance the corridor's unique neighborhood character. So that's not specifically addressing mobility, but what we do for mobility certainly has a lot to do with the character of the community, and should certainly respect that and integrate with that. Another guiding principle is improving mobility for all modes of transportation, as well as maximizing sustainable development. So the first and the last guiding principle, as I said, are not specifically related to what happens bike ped, but is really important to integrate and should set some of the foundation for what we think about and some of the concepts that we think through tonight. Just to revisit the vision that was established under the planning study, the first phase, was to promote a balanced approach for roadway use, recognizing the role that streets and roadways for vehicular flow, transit access, pedestrian movement, and bicycle circulation. So you can see a common theme through all of the vision, both visions and the guiding principles, was really to address all modes of transportation and to make them work together. And again, this kind of opportunity to combine and make that work together with the land use. So with that, we're going to talk about existing conditions. I'd like to introduce Steve Cook from Chen Wang, who's the mobility consultant working on our team for the project.
Thank you. As Brooke mentioned, we're relooking at the mobility aspect of the project. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with phase 1 and the improvements that are in that plan. But tonight we're really here to do 3 things. We're here to review, inform, and listen. We'll review what was in the existing plan, both the existing needs of the community and what the existing concepts were. We'll inform you of other potential possibilities, things that we could look to implement on this plan, because this is an opportunity to revisit some of the mobility improvements. It's an opportunity for you guys to inform us of what you guys are looking for, what your guys' ideal goals are, and then we'll listen. Like I said, we'll listen to what you guys want. It's open for public comment after the presentation, and we're here to really hear what the community needs and hear your guys' ideas. So first, just a quick review of the current conditions, the existing conditions, the existing problems that we've seen within the community. And to start with, there's really a great barrier in the community with the I-5 corridor and the rail corridor that really blocks off this community from really one of the city's greatest resources in the bay and the parklands along that. Another constraint is Claremont Drive. The Claremont Drive intersection in particular, it's a bridge, it's a high-speed roadway, there's a lot of free rides. And so I don't know if anybody's ever tried to walk or bike across the bridge, but it's not really a fun experience. And so one of the things we'll look at is to try and make that a little bit safer for everybody, not just for cars, but so that you could actually walk across that or bike across it and access kind of the valuable resources on the other side. Once again, lack of neighborhood bicycle facilities. If anybody knows Moreno, which I'm sure you all do, there's actually a southbound bike lane, but there's nothing in the northbound direction. So you can get down to Linda Vista or down to Old Town, but you can't get back. And that's a big problem. One of the other things that the existing conditions report did identify as a need is the whole community is not basically accessible friendly. So the ped ramps aren't up to ADA standards at a lot of intersections, which makes it a little bit harder to access, or a lot harder to access for those in the disabled community. Another issue that was brought up in the existing conditions report is there's not contiguous sidewalks across really the main connectors throughout the community. So you can't even really walk all the way down Marina Boulevard because there are missing sidewalks, particularly around kind of the Technology interchange. And the picture here, I mean, that's a bus stop with no sidewalks. So those are some of the things that we want to point out, and some of the issues that the plan should address. There is some congestion, particularly within the Claremont community, specifically on Marina Boulevard, kind of from West Marina to Knox Street. The rest of Marina Boulevard is actually, there's lower volumes, but this is one area where we're actually seeing higher volumes and some congestion. And then also the community concern for, there's just really not enough parking. There's Restaurant Row, there's a lot of real estate, there's a lot of retail and kind of commercial uses along Marina, but there's not a lot of on-street parking available, and that's one of the things that we heard from you guys in the first round. So what are the opportunities? So what can this plan bring, and what are the natural resources here that we can start to use? And one of them is to obviously improve bicycle and pedestrian connection. One of the things that we want to do is reduce trips within this area, and one of the ways to do that is to actually get people to use other modes and have people feel safe in other modes. One of the things that Kurt pointed out, the goal of the original plan is to kind of create a balance between the modes and create a safe environment. Really give people options of how they want to travel in the community. Don't force someone just to use a vehicular trip. The next one is to create contiguous connections. So not only does it need to be safe, but you need to be able to get to where you're going on a continuous safe facility. And that's one of the things that we're really going to strive to do is create a safe connection so that you can get to Old Town, so that you can get to Linda Vista, and you can use trips other than car trips to get around in the community. So another thing that we're looking at is to improve the connections to existing and future transit stops. One of the resources that we'll touch on a little bit, the Mid-Coast Trolley line, I'm sure you're all familiar with, that's something that will be coming right through your neighborhood. And so if you create access to transit throughout the community, it'll create new connections for you guys. You'll be able to provide transit trips to get to locations much faster. And you need to ensure that you guys can get to those transit stations so that you don't have to drive there, so that you can walk or bike there. And then one of the, so we also need to look at locations for additional pedestrian crossings. As we said, the constraints, the I-5 and the rail right-of-way does not give you guys a lot of options to get from here to the natural resources on the other side. And finally, potential roadway extensions. One of the things we're looking at, this is more limited this evening, but we're also open to it here, is kind of completing the network, allowing traffic flow more options to take people to different streets and lower volumes on some of the streets so we can make safer connections for peds and bikes. So these are the actual opportunities kind of in graphic form, and I touched on most of these already, but we'll review them really quickly. As I mentioned, the Mid-Coast line is going to come straight through here. You guys will get 2 new transit stops as part of that, 2 new ways to access basically a light rail line, which will connect you to the rest of the region. So that's a big opportunity that's coming on, and that's really one of the things that kind of spurred this project. Another opportunity is the valuable resources on the other side. Mission Bay is a great asset, and we need to be able to get you guys to that point. Another opportunity, well, Claremont Drive right now, the bridge right now, it is a little bit tough to cross as a bike ahead. There is opportunities there because there's a rather wide median and the travel lanes are wide. So there's the right of way to do more there. It's just an unused opportunity. We can do things there without having to widen the bridge or to really have very costly investment for improvements to the bridge. Another opportunity is Miranda Boulevard right now. At least north of West Miranda Boulevard, it is a little bit under capacity. Today, it's about 11,000 to 16,000 trips for a 4-lane roadway, which has a capacity of 35,000 trips. So we can use that opportunity to maybe, we can look at road diets for Miranda Boulevard to include things like angled parking or bike facilities or enhanced pedestrian facilities. We have the right of way there that we can already use. And finally, the Technology Bridge, just like the Claremont Bridge, once again, it's a wide bridge with a wide median and wide travel lanes. So we have the right of way there to maybe narrow those lanes, narrow the median, and include things like bike lanes or cycle track or enhanced pedestrian facilities to help people get to the new transit stations that will be located adjacent to it.
Can I ask a question? When does Balboa Station get taken into consideration in all this? Because it's also on the corridor, and these things that we decided now probably will impact that. So what's the schedule looking at Balboa?
We'll be looking at that as part of a separate effort, and that'll start later this year.
So another opportunity is some of the side streets, this is Napier Street. Some of the side streets have already started to incorporate angled parking to increase the parking that's available within the community. And that's an opportunity that we'll look for, is utilizing the extra right of way on side streets to maybe convert some of the parallel parking to angled parking. And that might help with some of the parking problems that we have within the community today. And that kind of gets into some of our parking management opportunities. We'll look for opportunities. We'll look at the side streets, see which ones are wide enough to convert from parallel parking to angled parking to get more parking within the community. And then also we will look for opportunities with the new development. Maybe there will be opportunities to create public parking lots, a central parking location where people can park and walk to multiple locations. We can also look at things like time-limited parking. If employees of the businesses are taking up the parking right in front of it, maybe that can be fixed with a 2-hour parking zone or something along those lines. These are all opportunities that we can look at to help really keep things moving and keep parking spaces open for people that need them. So that was kind of a review of the existing conditions. Does anybody have any questions on the existing conditions and what was in the existing phase 1 report? Okay, good. So now we'll actually start to talk about some of the concepts. And what we'll do is we'll talk about the concepts that are included in that phase 1 report to see if you guys still are comfortable with those, or to hear your guys' thoughts, or see if you want to do something different. And then also we'll go over some just kind of very broad concepts or very broad improvements that we could look at and try and gauge your guys' interest in those if it would be something that you guys would be interested in us looking further into and actually analyzing. So this first concept, this is a Miranda Boulevard kind of throughout the Claremont community. Right now, it's proposed as 1 lane southbound with 2 lanes northbound of travel, parallel parking on one side, having buffered bike lanes on both sides, and then having an enhanced multi-use path on the ocean side or the west side of the roadway. This is what the Phase 1 plan originally called for. This is kind of where we're really starting to look at, but we're not necessarily tied to this idea. So this is the Claremont Drive interchange. This is a very aggressive concept that was included in the original plan. This concept actually takes bike and ped traffic and puts it down the center median of the bridge. And one of the things that we did, we started to vet this concept with Caltrans a little bit, and they're not exactly comfortable with the idea of putting peds in the middle of the bridge. So we are getting some kind of pushback on this concept from Caltrans itself. But we would like to hear your guys' opinions on it as well. But I can't promise anything because Caltrans basically owns the bridge, so we have to listen to them a little bit more on this one. And then finally, the Technology Road interchange. We're going to maintain 4 lanes of traffic with 2 left turn lanes to go onto the freeway. We'll put bike lanes on either side and maintain the sidewalks that are there. So here are some of the ideas. So those are the concepts that were in the original plan. Here are some of the ideas of things that we could also include, or include in lieu of other improvements that are in the current plan. So questions to consider: what are the potential solutions for Miranda Boulevard, basically from Acre Street to Technology? That's something that we want to hear from you guys, and that's something that we'll touch on a little bit. What concepts would address key mobility issues, speeding, safety, access, parking, etc., and what concepts could enhance the overall community character? So, while mobility it's a tool, it's a way for people to get one place to another, but it's also a place tool. It also enhances the community, it beautifies the community, and it creates new facilities, and it can spur development in the community. So we want to hear some of your guys' ideas on this, and we'll also present you guys some of our ideas. So, planning for pedestrians. These are some kind of general concepts that we could look at. These are things that you put within a roadway to make the pedestrian environment safer. So, in the top right, raised crosswalks. So what this is at the crosswalk itself, it kind of creates a little speed bump, a little speed table, where the crosswalk is about 6 inches off the ground, which is ramped up and down. It makes the pedestrians feel a little bit safer because it's a straight walk off the curb. It's much more ADA friendly. And it also slows down pedestrians, it also slows down vehicles as they cross through the intersection. In the bottom left, bulb outs, which is a traffic calming device because it does narrow the roadway at the intersection, which naturally makes people slow down, but it's also a safer thing for pedestrians because it's a shorter crossing distance for them to get across. So there's less exposure time for someone that's actually crossing the road. And then on the left, I'm actually flip flopping, I'm saying my right and your left. So on the right of the screen, continental crosswalk. So this is more of a high visibility crosswalk. Instead of just the 2 bars, which are hard to see at night, and you never really know where to stop when you see one of those, if there's not an advanced stop bar, we replace that with thick white stripes so that the driver can actually see where the pedestrian right of way is, and that it makes them more alert to the presence of pedestrians within the crosswalk. So some additional planning for pedestrian concepts, rapid flashing beacons, which is an actual sign, which are actual signs that are posted that actually have flashing lights that will alert the driver to when a pedestrian is in the crosswalk and will alert them to the crosswalk itself. It's really just more of a visibility issue. And then also pedestrian refuge. So this is an example. This is in Salon Beach, and it's hard to tell in this picture, but that island median, it actually forces pedestrians to make like an L shape. So you cross, and then you actually have to look at oncoming traffic so you can see what's there, and then you cross again. And so what that does, it does 2 things. It kind of creates a center point for pedestrians to kind of be safe with oncoming traffic coming by, and it also forces the pedestrian to look and see what's coming, and actually, like our parents told us, look both ways before we cross the street. Pedestrian amenities, those are key, especially in retail areas, having benches and art and trees and planters, just things to beautify the community, and they obviously also basically operate as a barrier between pedestrians and vehicular traffic, so it makes pedestrians feel safer, and it's a much more comfortable environment for you to walk down. And then also pedestrian scale lighting. So I know we all know the street lights that are 30 feet tall and don't give off a lot of light. In high pedestrian areas, it's much more important to have street lights that are 10 feet tall and are right above your head, so you can actually light up the area and feel much safer. You can see what's going on, and you're not afraid to go down a dark alley, which is actually the main street. All right, so switching gears to bicycles. So some of the route types for bicycles that we could look at, there's 4 main routes. We'll start with the class 3 route, which is basically where the bikes share a lane with vehicular traffic. These are better for low volume streets. Under 5,000, really under 2,500 is what we aim for. We put down Shero, which is the bike with the chevrons on top of it to really inform the driver that the cyclist may be sharing the lane with them, and also tells the cyclist where to ride in the lane. So the next one would be bike lanes. We're all pretty familiar with these. These are the standard bike lanes. As I said, there's a southbound bike lane on Marina Boulevard. There's not a northbound one. Kind of the next step up from that is what we call a buffered bike lane, where there's at least a 3-foot buffer between the lane and the actual vehicular traffic. What this does is it gives the cyclist a little bit more room to ride on, and you're not right on top of vehicular traffic. The last one is a cycle track. Yes, sir.
You said that Marina you have between 11 and 16,000 trips a day.
Correct. That's what you said.
You can hold up to design for 35,000.
Correct.
Right. You're saying that the Sheros can be used on a street which has up to, you said 2,500, I think.
No, the shares can be used anywhere. That's for a bike route, a designated bike route. That's the ideal.
25,000?
No, 2,500.
25,000.
Yeah. So, but that's not a hard and fast rule. That's just basically the ideal when you're designated as a bike route. You can use share. Not to get too technical, and I'm sorry if I get too technical here. You can use shares in other instances to get people from one place to another. But that's the idea of a bike route, not necessarily when you use a share. If that makes sense.
Doesn't fully.
Okay. So, and then finally, cycle tracks. These are actual facilities that are fully separated with an actual vertical barrier that separates the bicycle traffic from the vehicular traffic, whether it's a curb or parking or a barrier or an actual physical barrier like a K-rail or something like that, or planters. This is another step. This is kind of the top end facility if you have the right way to do it. And finally, multi-use paths. Multi-use paths are basically paths that aren't necessarily associated with the roadway at all. They're in a completely separate right-of-way. These would be things that you go through the canyons on, the trails through canyons, or something like the Coastal Rail Trail, if you guys are familiar with that up in North County. That's what would be considered a multi-use path. And those are typically open for both bicycles and pedestrians. And then also one of the new concepts, one of the new things that's accepted through the engineering community now is community zones. And you actually use these in conflict areas. So in front of driveways, or when someone needs to merge over across a right turn lane, you actually paint it green, which alerts both the driver that, hey, there might be a cyclist in this area, and alerts the cyclist, hey, I'm in a conflict zone now. So it's another visual thing that alerts both parties to, hey, there's a conflict zone, I need to be extra cautious. One of the other things with bikes, if you're going to have more bikes, you need to park the bikes. And so that's a big problem that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, is providing bike parking. If you're a cyclist, you have an expensive bike, you don't want to take it somewhere and have to chain it to a pole or hope that there's a place to put it. So one of the new things that the City of San Diego is doing, it's not really new, it's a few years old now, is actually requiring new developments to actually have a standard for the number of bicycle parking spaces that need to be provided. And one of the opportunities from a placemaking standpoint with this is you can do brand bike racks. Bike racks don't have to be the standard kind of metal hoops that we're all used to. You can actually make them look nice and fun and have it be something that identifies the neighborhood. Planning for vehicles. So one of the goals is to slow down traffic and kind of create a balance between modes. And the way to do that is actually implement kind of more traffic calming measures. And some of the key measures that are the easiest to put in and most effective are narrow lanes with pop-outs. We talk about pop-outs or build-outs, which creates basically a shorter crossing distance for pedestrians, a safer crossing distance. It also slows down vehicles because as you approach the intersection, if something's popping out at you, you're going to naturally slow down. And something that typically goes with pop-outs, as you see in the picture in the top left, is angled parking. Angled parking also slows down the community because it typically results in narrower lanes, and you're more cautious of people basically backing up. So it puts drivers in a little bit more alert mode and slows them down a little bit. Another thing that's great for traffic calming is the physical median. With the physical median, it's an opportunity to use it to narrow lanes, and it's also, you don't feel, the roadway doesn't feel as fast. You don't have, it's another barrier to have you slow down. So here's an actual picture of kind of all of everything in play to kind of get a traffic calming area. As you can see, there's angled parking, there's pop-outs, there's I'm drawing a blank on the name, I just said the flashing beacons, and there's a continental crosswalk, there's a median to slow people down, it's narrow lane. So this is a good example. This is actually along Highway 101 in Solana Beach, and this is a really good example of how to slow people down. This used to be a freeway, and now it's actually a nice place to walk down. You don't feel unsafe. You can actually ride your bike in the lane there and you feel safe. Because the travel speeds are down around 25 miles per hour instead of 45. Yes, sir.
Is that what they call pop-outs, like you got on the way over, that was like a thing that you park on, is it pop-out?
Yeah, it's basically at the intersection, it's a little bulb out that comes out. It narrows the crossing distance, and yeah, exactly.
And like that one right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there.
Like this right here, exactly.
Oh, I was thinking where that one car was pop-out.
Yeah, this is one large pop-out that goes through the whole corner.
And the car's parking and the other car is coming from the side, like in the way along the way over.
Yeah, that's a good example.
So Steve, that's the last question. You want to back up to the question? The questions?
Yes, sir.
Basically, you're talking about making, we're in the boulevard, one car lane going one way and one lane, not the two that we have now.
We don't know that yet. We haven't come up with concepts. Like I said, we're here to listen. This is really your guys' opportunity to get in before we actually start to analyze and come up with our own concepts. To tell us what you want. We're not necessarily tied to what was in the phase 1 plan, and the land uses will be less intense with this plan, so we have a little bit more opportunity to look at options like that. But we haven't made any kind of decisions yet, and so we don't know yet what we're going to recommend. Wow, that's it. We'll just start from the.
Can we start with the camera?
Oh, sorry.
Could you pass the microphone to them?
Yeah.
So that everyone can give their comments. Thanks. Do you want to start? Do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
This is personal, this is not community, I haven't asked community on this one. But personally, I would not feel safe taking my grandkids to the middle of Claremont Drive and walking in between two directions of traffic. That is very big to me. I still think they always find money for something. They always find money somewhere. I think pedestrian/bike overpass bridge would be really good from Marina. And people expressed at the other meeting that they want to get tourists from the Hilton over to use the shops and the restaurants on the Marina Part 2. And from a previous meeting, bikers expressed concern about I guess you call it a cycle track, not being maintained. They have that on Friars Road.
Yeah.
And they say if it's totally not maintained, they refuse to ride it due to maintenance.
Yeah. And thank you for your comments. We'll definitely take those into consideration. As I mentioned, Caltrans isn't a big fan of the sit-around cycle track and bike lanes on Claremont, so I think that idea is going to ultimately get scrapped anyways. The Friars Road cycle track, that's a little bit different of an animal. It was built a long time ago before standards were actually created by organizations such as NACTO. And it's really before a lot of other communities have started putting cycle tracks. So one of the things that the city of San Diego has recently done is they've actually purchased equipment to actually clean cycle tracks. It's a really narrow street sweeper. that can actually get in there and clean that down. So the new cycle tracks are actually built to that standard, so they can actually be maintained. And that's always a question with cycle tracks, and that's always something that kind of comes into the decision-making process is, can we maintain it, how expensive will it be to maintain, so these are good keys.
Well, that was expressed at a previous meeting at Bayfront Elementary School from various people that just came up and made their own personal comments.
Great, thank you.
Hi. So I was not feeding on what she said about Claremont. So the issue that I'm having with that is you still have the freeway traffic going on and coming on.
Right.
And that's what to me really wasn't addressed.
And we don't, and the reason why it hasn't been addressed, can everybody hear me? I don't think I had a loud voice. Oh, sorry, okay. So that wasn't addressed at this point because we're not actually coming up with concepts yet. We're just looking at what we want you guys to identify what the problems is and tell us if we identify the correct problem. So we don't have an answer for that yet. That's one of the things that we have to look at and come up with a concept that actually does make that an opportunity to cross, whether it's I don't even want to speculate on what the improvements are going to be. I don't want them to. I don't want to seem biased in any way. But that is one of the locations we'll have to look at and make sure people can get across the freeway and across the railroad